Hi, I'm Richard Waystack. I'm a member of the Harwich Council on Aging, and I'm joined today by Adrienne Johnson, the chairperson of the Council on Aging, and Kevin Grunwald, who is the social service coordinator here for the Council on Aging. Thanks both of you for being here today as we discuss the Harwich Housing Summit. Preparing today for your housing options tomorrow, it's never too early. And it's never too early, is it, Adrienne?
No, it isn't. It's a good idea to plan ahead.
Adrienne, tell us about the summit. When's it going to be? Where's it going to be? So forth.
Sure. The Housing Summit is going to be Monday, October 3rd from 10 to noon. And we've invited 13 speakers from various aspects of housing options. They'll speak for 5 minutes each on their various topics and basically the requirements, the benefits of the options, of their housing options, cost and availability of the options. We have speakers from assisted living, subsidized, senior subsidized living, elder services, real estate, financial persons. So it's a pretty broad spectrum of coverage. And I think it'll be very informative for people. And it's really important that you plan ahead.
Well, you know, Adrienne, everyone knows you from here at the Council on Aging as a chairperson, and some might have seen you at some of the flu clinics and the various programs here as a nurse, but you're also a realtor as well. You're a fellow realtor here in town. And but I'll ask you from your perspective as a nurse, why is it important for our residents, and specifically our senior residents, to plan for their housing options?
Well, I think it's very important because when a crisis hits and you have to make a decision at that time, you're not obviously probably going to make the best decision you could have made. If you plan ahead, it's easier for family, it's easier for yourself, and you make the better options, you know, better choices at that time. If you're under stress, stress has a lot to do with it. You know, it's not the best time to make those decisions.
You know, I'm sure some of our residents out there are thinking, I'm in good shape. Financially, I'm good. You know, I'm healthy. And I think people never think that they're going to have a crisis enter their lives. And we see it all the time. Kevin, you're here as senior staff member here for the Council on Aging. You must see it all the time, various crises that occur.
We absolutely do, Richard. And you know, very often people will come into the Council on Aging for the first time and they've had some changes in their life circumstances. They're getting older. We're all getting older. They're having difficulty managing in their single-family homes. And as Adrienne says, they have not done a lot of planning in many cases. And so they come in and they're not aware of what the options are or what the services are that can support them. And a lot of times they're just really looking for some direction in terms of how to move. And they're also surprised when they realize that some of the things that they thought they might be able to do easily aren't really easy at all. So it's a challenge when we have people who want to stay in their homes, but very often are having difficulty doing that.
You know, some statistics that people may not be aware of, and we're realtors, so we counsel residents all the time. And our process can be long. You know, it can be a year, 2 years when we talk with people. But I think people don't understand a couple of factors, Adrienne, is that we have subsidized senior housing in town. Pine Oaks, people talk about Pine Oaks all the time, but they don't realize the waiting period to get it. What is the waiting period currently to get in?
Right now, it's a 4-year waiting period, which is incredible.
And when I had heard that recently, I was amazed. Kevin, and you must be surprised to hear those numbers.
Well, I'm not surprised because I deal with it all the time, but what I do often see is somebody who comes in and says, okay, I'm ready to move to Pine Oaks, so maybe I could do this next month. And they've not put an application in. They've not even started to think about moving out of their house. And so they are really shocked when they find out that it's a 4-year waiting list. And then it really involves moving to Plan B in terms of trying to figure out what some other things that they might be able to do. And one of those things is to just get an application filled out and get on the waiting list.
That, you know, as a realtor, and I'm sure you feel the same way, 4 years is amazing. And then what happens, Kevin, they get the application, they get it in, they come to see us a lot of times. Or you folks will call Adrian from the Council on Aging and say, I've got a resident here who needs housing. They need an apartment. They're no longer able to live in their single-family home by themselves. And they come to us and they look for a rental. And I don't know about you, Adrian, but I'm finding it very difficult to find market rate housing for anybody, never mind a senior.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's not getting better. You know, we need more housing, and you know, but I think this whole idea of the summit, I think it's a planning process. Mm-hmm. It's a process. It's just like any other aspect of life. Mm-hmm. It's just a good idea to look at your options. It doesn't mean you have to make a decision tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It just means you're well informed as to what those options are. And you're thinking. It gets you thinking.
Well, and I think one of the unique aspects of this summit is that it brings together experts in so many different areas, because we're really not just talking about housing units, we're talking about supportive services that will often help people to stay in their homes if that's what they need. We're talking about people who can assist with transitions, with downsizing, and finding out how they can get rid of some of the excess things that they've acquired over the years. So it really is, I think it's a wonderful group of experts that are coming in for this summit who are going to be able to provide information on a wide range of aspects of housing. And I think one of the things that people will find when they come is that it's not just about condos, it's not just about assisted living, it's not just about rentals, but it's about a whole spectrum of services that are available to folks.
I mean, even if, you know, someone who wants to stay in their home, and that's their choice, how to make the home safe. Yeah. You know, what things need to be done to the home so that a person can safely live in it for as long as they, you know, possibly can. So it does. It covers a wide range of services and options for people.
Adrian, you bring up a great point, Kevin, as well. And it's funny, we talk about stuff, memories you might call it, people might call it other things, but we go into houses at times and there are a lot of things there, and a lot of memories that people have accumulated over the years. And I know one of our speakers is going to be senior movers, you know, who can assist people. That can be overwhelming to someone looking at a house that they've lived in for a number of years, and they say, oh my goodness, my basement is full of my memories. How do I get rid of all? It's overwhelming. I can't handle it. So there'll be someone here from the moving industry who will help us discuss that.
And you're right. It's not just stuff. It's really, you know, it's things that people have acquired over the course of their lifetime. Things that are really, you know, filled with memories of family and good times and trips that they've taken and things like that. And unfortunately, what happens, I think, a lot of times is people feel like those items have a lot more value than they really have. They have value to them, but if they're thinking about, you know, selling it or giving it to their kids don't want it many times. Right. And so we do have somebody who's going to be coming in who's going to assist people with finding out how to get rid of those things, also to estimate how much you can bring into a smaller unit, how many pieces of furniture you can have. And again, that's a piece of information that people don't often have that is really helpful in terms of making a transition like that. And it's also being sensitive, again, to the notion that, you know, these things that people have acquired have incredible meaning and incredible importance. And so it's not just about getting a dumpster and filling it up and saying, okay, we're going to get rid of all of this. So I think, you know, that's one of the pieces of the summit that I think will be helpful to some people.
You know, everyone has them. I remember my mom, before she passed on, she had given me a box of things, of memories from her basement. And they were my parochial school report cards. And I didn't like being reminded of some of those grades back then. But you know, those are things that they are. They're memories, and the value to the family is so important. It may not be to anybody else, but it's so important to them. You know, we talk about the planning process, and I know in real estate many times when people come to see us, one of the first things we talk about is estate plans and their power of attorneys, and you know, things happen. Yeah. You know, and we've had it happen even during transactions. So we'll have legal representative there talking about, again, the planning process, what is necessary. And I know many of our local attorneys here, always one of the first questions, is there a power of attorney? Mm-hmm. You know, because many times, and I know I had a situation recently, someone here in town, a resident of the community, and someone who utilizes the services here at both the Council on Aging and the Community Center. 95 years old, still living in a single-family house, driving, and wonderful woman. Her kids are in New Jersey and Minnesota. And the kids were concerned that Mom, she'd been battling some health issues over the years, and she was still living in her single-family home. She had a lot of those memories, that she wanted to share, but she hadn't started the process. And some of the first things we talked about as a realtor going in of who is your attorney? We need to set these things in place. Where are you going? What's your motivation? And it was very interesting. Dealing with the kids, their motivation was different than Mom.
Yeah.
The kids wanted Mom close to them. One was New Jersey, one was in Minnesota. Mom wanted nothing to do with it. She wanted to stay here.
Right.
But the process, it took over a year to get everything in place, to get rid of some of those things that were at the house, to find appropriate housing. Kevin, you brought up a great point of what things was she going to take with her? What were things that were going to the kids, and where were the extra things going? So it was a process, and
I think just in that sense, in that downsizing is one thing, and it's hard for everyone. And these are all memories and parts of these people's lives. Like you said, you can't just throw them in a dumpster. No. And I think these people, the senior movers, have expertise on how to make you feel good about what you're doing with those articles and memories, and and know what's necessary for you to have. And make those decisions and make it a little easier, and make it so it's not a negative thing,
Well, and Richard, you're using an important word, which is that it's a process. So it's something that takes place over time. It involves a lot of steps. And that's why, the tagline for this summer is that it's never too early to start this process, because part of that is really thinking about, so where do I want to be geographically? Where do I want to be? What kind of space do I want to be living in? And there are a lot of steps in that process, and people can start that planning very, very early on. And again, as you said, make sure that there's a power of attorney in place. Make sure that if there's estate planning that needs to be done, that it's done, that you have an idea of where you want things to go. And if you're thinking about moving into subsidized housing, then to get your name on that waiting list very, very early. And it's hard for all of us to think, that 4 years from now I'm going to be wanting to live in a different place than I want to live right now. I always tell people it doesn't cost you anything to get your name on the waiting list. You can always change your mind when your name comes up, but in the meantime, you've given yourself that option. And again, it is never too early to start thinking about that.
Absolutely. And Kevin, as you talk in the process, that if folks were looking at senior housing locally, and it was 2, 3, 4 years to get in, we're also going to have a member of the deputy assessor will be there to talk about programs for residents of the community while they're waiting, while they're in the process, if there are things that the town can do to assist. We have senior exemptions that we can allow tax credits for folks. We have a work-off program. So as one of the issues that comes up in the planning process many times as a crisis is a financial crisis. And I have another resident here in town, a husband and wife, and they live at an assisted living center in town. But they pay a monthly fee there. And they're both in their 80s. If something were to happen to the husband, the wife loses the pension.
Right.
And then she wouldn't be able to afford to live in that facility.
And that's a frequent occurrence.
Happens a lot,
yeah.
Adrian. We see that a whole lot. And then so we talk about what are things that we can do to accommodate that if something should happen. People don't realize, that anything could come up as a crisis. And the planning process, as I mentioned, that woman who was 95, that was a year. And that was reactive and not proactive.
Yeah.
So in many cases, it can take 2, 3, 4 years. And people need to plan so that it's not a crisis that you folks here at the Council on Aging are dealing with, that others have to get involved, but it allows people to plan accordingly with the least amount of stress.
Exactly.
And that's what we're trying to accommodate. We have a lot of speakers. We only have a 2-hour program. So we're going to leave plenty of time for questions and answers.
There'll be plenty of time for people afterwards to, have questions answered. And they're also going to provide written materials on their, fields of expertise. And I think it's a jumping off point. It's an informative summit to let people know the options that are out there And then from there, we'll see what we need to do next. What our next program would be.
Well, it's planning again. It helps us plan here
Yeah.
at the Council on Aging what we need to do to assist the residents of this community.
Exactly.
But in addition, again, people will have plenty of time for questions and answers. All of the presenters, Kevin, they're going to hang around. And they're
They'll
going to
be
speak.
here, yep.
You're actually going to speak yourself, aren't
I
you?
am. I'm one of the first speakers, and I'm going to be talking about services that the Council on Aging offers that assist people with housing and also planning for housing. And I think it is, kind of sets the stage in terms of some of the things that we've been talking about today, in terms of services that are available, resources that are available to people that they can take advantage of and that they can start to access now.
And again, we'll continue to call this as a process in the planning process so that, if people are here, they want to get more information, all of the presenters are going to be sticking around and chatting afterwards. So if you have questions, and if you're planning on attending, it's very, very important that people call us.
Sure.
Because we have limited seating for the event. And I know during the program they're going to be putting a number on the screen, and I believe it's 508-430.
430-7550.
7550.
Yeah.
So you're going to need to call to make a reservation because we are limited, and it's going to be a great event.
It is.
And I believe that we'll be a sellout. So I would ask people to call.
And the deadline is, we ask that people RSVP by September 26th,
Which is coming up
which
shortly.
is coming up
That's
quickly.
Friday,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Adrian, thanks so much, not only
Thank
for
you.
being here today, but all the work you do on behalf of the seniors in the community with the Council on Aging.
My pleasure.
Kevin, same with all you do here. People love being able to have access to you, be able to speak to you. And we look forward to seeing everyone at the Harwich Housing Summit, which is going to be Monday, October 3rd, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. We look forward to seeing you.